Okay, hi. Welcome to the now third episode of Guild of Gluttony. I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know that I'm having fun with it, and I know that I want to just keep doing this for a little while. I'm only 3 recipes in, I guess 4, so I'm recording this before I've even made the recipe, but I kind of have some ideas of what I want to do with it. But before I get into the video, I wanted to talk a little bit about my own personal background with D&D and kind of how I got into it and just kind of the importance, which sounds a little bit silly talking about a game. I've been thinking a lot about it lately and thinking about the impact that such a silly game has had on me as a person and just kind of the tool that it's been in my life. My friend Trey sent me over a video clip, and I'll actually include it here. It's of a comedian named Thomas Middleditch on the James Corden show, where he talks about his experience with Dungeons and Dragons and playing with his friends. I was initially attracted to D&D because of the fantasy elements, or because of even like the role-playing elements or the storytelling, whatever. I think I just liked games. I liked the mechanics of it, and I liked the idea of moving pieces around on a game board and fighting things and getting treasure for it. The more that I dove into it, the more that I realized I just liked the idea of being able to tell this story and having this creative outlet where you're sitting around doing silly things and doing stuff that might be uncomfortable in any other context with other people that are doing the same thing and that are not going to be judging you for it. I think when I was younger, I was a super judgmental person and I was pretty closed-minded. And so to even think about doing something that's not cool or that's not, that won't increase my status, I would tend to kind of shy away from those things and also put down other people that were into those things, which then bred in me as I got older kind of the fear that other people are doing the same thing to me for enjoying the things that I enjoy. And I think, I don't know, that just sucks. It sucks that was something that, I lived with for so long and still do. I don't know. It's just freeing to find something that I like and that I enjoy and that my friends enjoy that we can talk about and kind of obsess over, honestly, at times, but it's pretty fun. I'll cut to the cooking now. Continuing my progression in the videographer class, I've decided to take on the green screen feat, as you can see demonstrated here. It seems like a really useful skill that can be applied in a lot of different scenarios. And you'll see here that it looks like the D6 had one idea for what it wanted me to cook, but then the D12 had a totally different idea. I ended up rolling for the recipe Elven Bread, and I thought this would pair nicely with the Hot Spiced Cider recipe in the Elixirs and Ales section of the Hero's Feast cookbook. And as I've mentioned before on the channel, if I can make something from scratch, then I'd like to at least go ahead and attempt it. And so that particular recipe calls for apple cider or apple juice as part of the recipe, so I thought I'd go ahead and try making it myself. It ended up being a little bit tougher than I was expecting, so if anybody has any recipes or any tips on making apple juice or apple cider, please let me know in the comments down below. I feel like I have a general idea on how to simplify the process, but it takes a lot of specialized tools that I don't necessarily have. Plus, I like the immersion of only using the tools that a chef in the D&D world would use, but obviously I cheat from time to time whenever I'm too tired. But I can't really cast Mage Hand to just stir a pot whenever I want, so I feel like that makes up for it. But for the homemade cider, I just went ahead and cut up the apples into pretty small pieces, and then I just put them in a pot and cooked it into a bit of a mush that I then transferred to our food processor in an attempt to make it more liquidy. Gross. At this point, I ran the sludge through a mesh in order to separate some of the chunky parts from the cider, and this is definitely where appropriate tools would come in more handy, but it was actually kind of working. I was getting a good liquid that I feel like would make for a good base for a drink. And then there's the rest of this pulpy stuff that can probably be avoided by just peeling the apples at the beginning. But from the 10 apples that I used, I was able to get 3 cups worth of cider, which is exactly what the recipe called for. But there was quite a bit of waste with the rest of this stuff, but I'm sure there's a use for it, maybe apple butter or something. I'm just not that experienced with apples, which is kind of a weird phrase that I never thought I would say. But it was time to move on to the bread now, which means that I had to work with my mortal enemy, the scale. And so you'll see here that I am weighing out some yeast and then putting some back, and then putting some back in, and then taking some out. I don't like weighing stuff, but I know yeast can be a pretty finicky thing, so I didn't want to mess that up. I wanted to get it right. The book says that this recipe has been around in elven culture for millennia, so I don't I don't want to make them upset. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I want to spotlight smaller companies and creators as much as possible. So for the honey on this recipe, I was able to find Cooper's Raw Clover Honey, which is based out of Peculiar, Missouri. I felt like it was a great addition to this recipe, so if you get a chance, make sure to shop local. As I'm kind of building the world that the Guild of Gluttony is actually going to exist in, there's different foods and different elements that I'm super excited about, and honey in particular is one of them. I'm particularly drawn to the imagery of lands that are flowing with milk and honey, and I think there's a lot that I could do there. So that's just kind of a peek into my brain as I'm thinking through what this world is going to look like. There's definitely going to be the traditional elements that exist within Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm also creating some of my own elements that are going to mesh with that world as well. So it's going to be familiar, but there's going to be a lot of exciting new things that I will be able to share. But back to the recipe, this dough ended up being a super sticky dough, so it wasn't really one that I felt comfortable kneading by hand. And you'll see as I'm going along, I really just kind of got frazzled as I was working on this recipe. I felt like things just kind of weren't going right, and so to get sticky dough all over the counter, that would just make things way worse. Thankfully, I was able to avoid any major catastrophe this go around, but you'll see shortly that I did have a few hiccups along the way. But at this point, this had turned into a really nice dough. It ended up being pretty easy to work with. I think the source of my frustration was really just my inexperience in making much bread, but all the more reason to just keep practicing. So this is one of my favorite parts of working with doughs, is actually rolling it out. Again, since I'm sort of a novice bread maker, I actually had to buy a new bread pan for this one. So I had to put it up next to the dough in order to make sure that I was spreading it out to the right length. I was able to eyeball it pretty good, but after I rolled everything up, I had to kind of squish it a bit. And this is the part where things really started to go south. I had the bright idea of grinding up my own cinnamon, and I thought that my food processor would be able to handle it. I don't know where I got the notion that cinnamon sticks are a lot softer than they actually are, but I'm sure some of you are wincing seeing this footage, knowing what is about to happen. So that's about as long as it took for me to realize that this was a really bad idea and that it really wasn't going to work, so I had to try something else. So when in doubt, just grab a hammer and start hitting stuff with it. That is kind of my go-to motto in the kitchen. And I was kind of hoping that if I had broken the cinnamon stick up into smaller pieces, that it would be able to grind in the food processor a little bit easier. I really wasn't sure, and I was completely improvising at this point. So then I transferred it back to the food processor to give it another shot, and it was really no better this time. I learned my lesson that the food processor is not the right way to grind up spices. Just another lesson this go around and what not to do. But with a conjure food and water spell and a little bit of movie magic, I was able to get what I needed. That was when I realized that I actually did need the cinnamon in stick form for the cider, so it actually worked out. And now I'm just making the cinnamon sugar filling that goes inside of the bread. There's a footnote on this recipe that says to double the amount of filling if you want it to be a dessert bread, so obviously I went with that option. I'm honestly not really sure what other context you would eat this in other than for a dessert. Maybe a breakfast? I don't know. But now I'm applying an egg wash so that the cinnamon sugar filling has something to adhere to, and this is pretty satisfying to look at. It gave the dough a nice sheen, and it kind of made me feel like I was back on track. And now for the moment that I had been waiting for since starting this recipe, was adding the sweet cinnamony sugar filling to the bread. This really just made it look beautiful, and I wanted to polymorph into a small creature and make snow angels on top of it. I mean, just look at this. I mean, how incredible would that be? That would be awesome. Unfortunately, my daydreaming didn't get to last for very long because it was time to actually roll it up into a loaf. And this was way trickier than I was expecting it to be. As I mentioned earlier, it was a little bit too long, so I had to kind of squish it once I got it all rolled up in order for it to actually fit in the bread pan. And I knew that this dough was soft, but I wasn't accounting for how heavy it would be and how floppy it would be whenever I actually went to pick it up. So the weight of the dough and the filling kind of made it flop open. Definitely a chaotic alignment. But after getting frustrated from wrestling with it for a little bit and then calming myself to take a deep breath, I decided to dump it out and try again, and from there I was able to form it into some semblance of a loaf. But the best part of cooking is that even if something doesn't look good, all that matters is the taste. Because this definitely wasn't looking good. But after much wrestling, I was able to get it nested into the bread pan, and I needed to get it out of my sight. When looking at the cinnamon sticks that I tried to grind up earlier, I found a piece of the processor actually broken off into the pile. So yeah, definitely don't use a food processor on these things. But I'm happy to say that everything was pretty smooth sailing from here on out. While the bread was rising, I just had to prepare some of the rest of the ingredients for the cider, and it was really just kind of as simple as dumping everything together and just heating it up, and of course eventually straining out all of the solid pieces, like the cinnamon sticks and the orange peel. Unless of course you're into that kind of thing, then feel free to leave them in, I guess. Just based on the ingredients that this recipe called for, I was super excited for what it was going to taste like. And just a little bit of foreshadowing, I can say that it actually exceeded my expectations. So here's what the loaf ended up looking like after it had risen for an hour. It had this weird lump in it, but again, I was just kind of fed up with it, so I just threw it in. But not before giving it a gentle caress and wishing it well on its journey. Please ignore our dirty oven. The clean function on it doesn't work. As I was doing my research before starting on the cider, I kept reading that it's supposed to make your house smell amazing, and they weren't wrong. And we all know that fresh baked bread smells amazing as well, so the mixing of these two smells was crazy. But before the bread was done, I still had one more ingredient to add to the cider, and my friend Emma's mom had actually made us some homemade vanilla, so shout out to Melissa. It was a great touch. And now for the grand reveal. I could see that there was still kind of that divot in the middle of the bread, but as the bread rose as it baked, it got less noticeable, so I guess bread is pretty forgiving in that regard. It had a really nice golden crust too, and I don't know, there's just something about bread that has kind of like a rustic adventurer vibe to it. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy in that. But this is by far the most satisfying cross-section that I have been able to provide on this show so far. I'm just super proud of the color and the swirl, and honestly just the fact that I made it this far. There were a few times along the way that I thought that I was just gonna give up, so the fact that I finished, I'm really happy with. And just assembling this as a full spread was a really satisfying thing to look at as well. All the colors worked together well, almost as well as the flavors did, and again, just super proud of the end result. And when it came to slicing it, it actually cut really easily. It didn't crumble at all, it didn't flake, it was just a really good cohesive loaf. And so now on to the taste test portion. All right, so here's our bread. A nice little swirl to it. Cheers.
Cheers. That's good.
It's pretty good. I don't make bread very often. It feels a little squishy. Maybe I should have cooked it a little longer.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, I like
that
it
it's
chewy.
soft on the inside. Nice. Good job.
Thank you.
Cider.
Cider time. And for the cider.
It's really hot. It's really good.
That's so good though.
That's so good. It's thick, but I like
Oh.
it. It's like drinking a thin, hot applesauce.
Yeah, and truly.
But I like the flavors in it. It tastes like orange and cinnamon.
Yeah. Do you know what the other fruit is?
Apple.
Well, there's apple, yeah. There's one more fruit that's kind of in there.
Lemon. I don't know. What is it?
Cranberry.
Well done.
Thanks.
This is good.
Yeah, the pairing of flavors, I feel like it's great.
Yeah, this is like a good fall drink.
Mhm.
Snack.
I'll probably try it again. There's several things I would do different. I would probably do these on separate days, not doing them at the exact same time. Always getting some.
Get some crumbs.
That's part of the segment. Yeah, it's just a lot of work for both of them.
Yeah, you did everything from scratch.
Yeah, I need to learn how to properly grind cinnamon. I call this a win.
Nice job.
Yeah, now that it's cooled
Cheers.
down.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, so I will be completely honest. This was a little bit of a tough video to get through. I'm not really sure why. It might be because, I don't know, bread is kind of a simple thing. With my first two videos, it was kind of like, here's me going out and getting the ingredients. I feel like I was more excited about kind of the prospect of doing this whole thing. And then I got to this one and I don't know, I felt like I just kind of hit a wall. So I'm sure that is something that I'll get over. It's just been kind of tough. There have also been a few pretty big life events happening. My sister just had her third kid, which is so exciting. He is precious and they're great parents. It's fun to just watch them go through that journey. So that's kind of taken up some of our time. So at first I didn't really have a lot of ideas for the adventure part of this particular recipe, but then as I started thinking about it, I think I've actually come up with something it's my favorite adventure that I've come up with so far, which I'm not gonna show. I actually printed off a ton of minis. I've gotten my 3D printer to where I think it's working with every print. So I'm not gonna show everything that I've printed for that adventure, but I will show a little bit of stuff. Obviously, the guild is gonna need like a lounge or a kitchen that they can relax in, that they can actually prepare the meals in. So I've been kind of putting that together. I've printed off a bunch of these floor tiles that actually they link together with these little clips, and so that kind of builds out your floor. And then obviously if the members of the guild are going to be making bread, they need a bread oven. So I was pretty excited about that. It's a really cool thing. It's open at the bottom and then it's open in there. You can put a tea light underneath it and it actually looks like it's illuminated. For this particular adventure, I will be using these little guys. So that's all the stuff that I've printed. I'm still working on the world building for these adventures and I think I've made some good progress. I'm working on a map right now, which will hopefully be done pretty soon, but I'm really stinking excited about that. And then I'm working on kind of like the Pantheon as well. I don't know, I'm really excited to share kind of these ideas that I'm putting together. So I think I'm almost to a point where I'm ready to start these adventures. And I've been talking to my friends, we're kind of trying to put that together as well, which again, it's probably, you guys are probably the only ones watching, but stay on the lookout for that. I'm very excited. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this one. Hopefully I can feel more motivated for the next one and get it cranked out a little quicker. I just appreciate all the love and support.